Hello, welcome to the Internet Chess Club. I'm Grandmaster Miguel Illescas, and I'm going to do for you the video recap of the first 3 rounds of the World Chess Championship Candidates Tournament, which is taking place in Madrid. I was lucky to be the host on the opening ceremony and to meet all the players. A lot of tension. It's the most important tournament of the year, and a lot of good chess we could see in these first 3 rounds. Let's go. This is one game of the first round between Jean-Christophe Duda and Richard Rapport. It was very promising at the beginning, and in my opinion, the Polish player got a big advantage, but later he didn't succeed converting it. And my feeling is that he probably was quite upset after this game. Look, it was a strange opening with a very early surprise bishop f4. It's quite an interesting idea, of course not very well known, and the point is to leave the pace free for this pawn just in case if you want to play c4 instead of knight c3. In the game, White succeeded with his strategy, especially after a very strange move combination knight e7 and g6. This cannot be good. This was really too much. You cannot play like this. You should probably at one point play here knight g6. This was very natural, and try to play normal chess, bishop e7. Maybe White is slightly better, but nothing really extraordinary. But g6 is really bad, and Black was punished with the move c5. Now the point is that Black is not in time to take. There are many ideas, but bishop e5 looks quite annoying, attacking the rook, and Black is going to lose the right to castle. So he had to invent something after e5. Again, bishop f6 is a threat, and then okay, he's left with a weakness on c6 and a very poor knight on e7, very poor bishop on g7. White is much better, and here at this moment, move 13, I have the feeling that White lost the track. I mean, for me, it's a very automatic move here, queen c2. Just we prevent rook d8, and now next we are ready to play knight d2, bishop c4, rook to c1, to start some pressure on c6, and White's position is really much better. Also, the queen on c2 is very well placed. Just if one day Black plays h6, the bishop coming to e3, and suddenly some threats appear with bishop c5. So it was very natural. Instead, he went knight a3 in the game. He lost part of the advantage, and finally he was not able to win the game. It was a draw. Good result for Richard Rapport, especially after such a poor opening. In the second board, we had a very interesting fight between the Chinese Grandmaster Ding Liren and Yang Nepomniachtchi. Let me show you this game full, because it was a very interesting battle. White was well prepared, playing very fast. Nepo had some games with Black in this line, and everything was kind of well known till move 10. In this position, a lot of players have tried different things, h5, some of the moves, but castle was not very often played. Still, it looks to me like a very natural move. And knight c5 was played in, for example, Giri Grishuk in Ekaterinburg 2020. Later, they played still 3 moves following a game of Ding versus Niemann, played this same year, 2022. It was after a3, rook e8 and b4. Let's see these moves. a3, rook e8, b4, and this was, as I said, a game of Liren. He was happy to repeat it, and here it came kind of novelty by Nepo. He was thinking, but it's difficult to know if it was his preparation or he was just pretending that he was finding the moves on the board. He was thinking 8 minutes to play rook e8, and another 8 minutes, almost 9, to play knight g4. This was really the new move in the game, knight g4. And it's quite easy to see that Black is making a pawn sacrifice. After Knight takes, bishop takes, white can take the pawn, bishop takes e4. Liren was thinking a lot, more than 11 minutes. He finally played bishop b2. He didn't grab the pawn, and Nepo answered quite fast with queen h5. Now black is threatening checkmate, queen h2, white needs to do something. The critical move was, of course, knight takes g4. After bishop g4, white can take the pawn, and it's a very important central pawn. Of course, black has some compensation. I mean, he can play, for example, bishop f6, and then white is kind of forced to play something like f3. It's difficult to say, I mean, how the game is going to develop. Black can use both central lines to make pressure on white's position, but it's true, white is a pawn up. This was really challenging, and I have the feeling that Liren had to go for it, but instead he, after thinking more than 20 minutes, he went h4. In my opinion, it's a very poor move, weakening the king side, and in general it's going to offer black a lot of tactical possibilities, even sometimes bishop sacrifice on h4 or some break on g5. In the game, Nepo played very safe, bishop f6. After a few moves, I think he got a very good position, taking on e3. At this moment, of course, f takes e3 is not possible because g3 is very weak, so he has to take with the d pawn. And I really dislike this pawn structure. I think the pawn on e2 can be, in many variations, a big trouble for white. It's cutting the board into two parts. I mean, f2 can be weak if the queen has no way to give it support. The king maybe sometimes cannot escape through e2. And in general, black is a pawn up on the queen side. Okay, the game was still very unclear anyway, because there is a lot of pressure on e4. I don't like the move knight a4. Computer recommends b5. It is a move not so easy to make. It looks like black is getting a lot of play here, but if this happens after queen b1, we can see that the black pieces are on the king side. The game gets open on the queen side, and white has some ideas, knight a7, knight d6. This could be quite fine for white. Of course, after b5 there are some other ideas, knight c7 probably the best, but knight a4 seems to be already a mistake. Now black is going to get a very comfortable position in a few moves, rook e6, protecting d6, and he's also ready to bring the rook to the king side after g5 and maybe rook h6. Now the game becomes quite difficult for white. Very soon he's going to be in trouble. In fact, at this point, move 21, it was already possible to play g5 with a very promising attack. I mean, pawn takes, queen takes, and then suddenly pawn is going to come to h4 with h5 and h4. But in the game, Nepo played h6, very safe, a lot of respect between these top players. And this was maybe probably the last mistake from white, the next move, queen d2. According to computer, and I fully agree, white had to be ready to sacrifice an exchange, to take on d5. I mean, if g5, we can take on d5. Even after rook e8, it's probably the best idea to just sacrifice an exchange and try to make it work. This position, probably black is better. I mean, rook c8, and there are some open files, and it's difficult to make sure that white has full compensation. But this was the best practical chance, because after queen d2, rook e8, we will see that very soon. No, this is a very poor move. I mean, king h2. If you have to play king h2, it means something is going really very bad. After king h2, black played, well, the idea is if g5, rook h1. I mean, this is the point of this move, and maybe black, I mean, sorry, white can survive. I'm not so sure, but anyway, Nepo played probably better. Bishop g4, attacking on e2, and it's difficult to, if rook e1, then g5 is stronger, and what to do. I mean, if bishop f1, then there is no pressure on e4, and black can also play g5. So really, white's position is very bad. He was now trying to complicate things with knight a5, but after a few precise moves, we will see that the position is almost lost. I mean, g5, black is attacking with all his army on the king side, and white really can't do it really too much. I mean, there is a point that after pawn takes, if some move like rook e4, then black can simply take, and play. I was not sure about rook f2, because here black can take and cover, but here simply rook h6. And very soon, because this pawn on e2, very quick mate is going to follow here. So really it was a very bad position. He played knight b7, but of course this pawn is not important here. At this moment, white is going simply to get mated. I mean, the game knight c5, h3, some h2 is coming. He tried rook e4, and then a very simple sacrifice, exchange sacrifice, and now queen h1 is coming, and if king g2, this is mate in 4 moves. Yes, can you find it? Black to play and mate in 4, take, check. Maybe this is what Ding missed. Maybe it's quite easy for a top grandmaster to find this easy checkmate. I mean, it's mate in 4, as we said, and well, there is not so much to do here. Queen h1 is coming. He played f4, but then the rook is hanging, and a very nice touch to end the game with bishop h3. And if white takes, this is going to be checkmate in a few moves, because the king is quite lonely there, and queen g4, rook f5, a lot of different ways to checkmate this guy. Of course, if king h2, then simply queen f1, and this is mate in few moves. Okay, so this was probably the most important game, but Caruana also played a very interesting game against Nakamura. He won. Very fine game, very tough. I think the first mistake in this game came in move 21. It was pretty equal, in my opinion. This was the position after the opening, and black made here the move castle. I think this is really a misconception of the position. Probably the best idea was to leave the king on the center to play h4, trying to use this space advantage to organize an attack on the king side. But another idea could be even king d7. This is quite a funny move, but it makes sense to go to the queen side. The black king will have a decent shield there, and he can use his pawns to organize an attack on the king side. But after castle, then black gets a bad position. I mean, he's overextended on the king side, and Caruana played really well, f3. He's going to open some files there. The next critical move in this game came probably after move 33. We can just go there, and we will see how well Caruana played. 93. Look, the black king is open, the bishop is quite bad, and white is ready to organize an attack with knight f5, rook f1. g4 is also weak. That's why Nakamura, he played g3, trying to create some weaknesses also on the white's king camp. But we will see that, well, I mean, it was technically a bit boring, some checks, blah, blah, blah. But finally, Caruana was able to enter with his pieces. We will see the decisive moment when he played here rook d1, attacking, and knight d5. And now knight f6 is coming, and after rook f8, black is simply losing the pawn on e4, and white converted this advantage without any problem. So very good game for Fabiano Caruana, very good start with +1. But there was another interesting moment, interesting game on the first round between Radjabov and Firoja, and it was the Frenchman, well, the Iranian player under French flag, who created the most attractive complications in the opening. Let's have a look. The first critical moment, in my opinion, is after move 18. He went in a very fashionable opening line. He went rook takes b2. He sacrificed an exchange, and we can see that it's just a pair of bishops because there are no pawn for the exchange, And it was quite interesting how White reacted. Radjabov was thinking for almost 15 minutes, and he went rook c1. He was offering to give back the exchange. This was possible, of course, knight d3, because black has a tricky move here, queen d5. And according to computer analysis, this is probably equal. But quite fast, Firouzja went bishop d5. He didn't think for too long this move. And he was ready to play a full exchange down. Of course, there is a nice compensation with the bishop on d5, the knight on f4. But always dangerous, you know, because if you don't get some pawn very soon, finally the rooks may be better. But of course the attack on e4 is not so easy to meet, and after queen c2 black grabbed the pawn on a3, and suddenly we have a very tactical sequence. White needs to do something fast, because if a5, a4, bishop b4, black is going to be better. And after knight fg5, there are some threats, knight f6 check and mate. Black is forced to go back with the knight, and suddenly h4 is coming. It's a very interesting sequence now. Black is going to regain the exchange, but white is going to be attacking on the king side, and in my opinion, white is better. I mean, how much better? This is the question. After take on f7, this is a very interesting moment. Everybody was expecting, of course, rook f7, but black has a big problem here, because after knight g5, queen d3, and it's very difficult to meet the threat, or queen c2. And even if rook f5, white has the move g4. And really, this is really dangerous for black, because after rook f8, queen d3 is coming. And if rook takes, queen takes, bishop h1, some tactics are working here for white with the move f3. If queen f3, then check, check, and take the bishop. And this is probably better for white. So Firouzja made a very clever move. King takes f7, and his case with the king, this was very brave. In my opinion, white was better, but he was not able to prove it. He went for some endgame. I'm not sure knight e4 was necessary at all. And after a few moves, white was happy to win a pawn, but probably this was not enough to win the game. Firouzja defended very well, and this endgame, according to the Lomonosov table basis, perfect play with 7 pieces. This is a draw, and Radjabov was not able to create any danger for black. So this was the first round. We had two leaders, Caruana with 1 point, and Nepomniachtchi, and they were both going to play on the second round. So let's have a look at that game on the second round. It was really not too exciting. I mean, it was an Italian, a very slow game. Really not much to say about this game. Both they played very solid. Well, I have to say that this is not true. I mean, they were not playing solid. I mean, in fact, it was a very interesting game after black played g5 and knight g4. This was a kind of new idea that Caruana prepared for this event, and it led to a very, very interesting position where the American had some chances, but I think it's very unfair that commentators who are only checking the computer evaluation, they said, okay, Caruana spoiled a big advantage. He was not ready to take some risk. This is not true. I mean, the position was very, very unclear. And even if at one point here, for example, in this position, computer is saying something like black is better, but for human, it's not so clear. I mean, it's true that black has 2 pawns, but white pieces are very good for the attack. And in a normal game, if you don't have the computer to help you, you have a lot of doubts that black is really better. And after a few moves, they managed some kind of repetition of moves, and the game ended into a draw. I mean, we can just have a look how it went. Nepo played quite well. I mean, getting a lot of initiative on the king side. And it's true, maybe Caruana could do something more, but they were in time travel, and it was not easy to take a risk here. These are the pawns that black has of advantage. They are not very relevant at this moment, so it's very unfair to criticize Fabiano for this decision to make a draw here. In the second round, the games were not so interesting as in the previous first round. The battle between Rapport and Firugia was very long, but at one point Rapport had some advantage, but he didn't really find the most precise moves. Was very long at one point, as I say, probably around. There were several moments. This is one moment. Maybe White was better with King F5. It was a very difficult rook endgame. At one point, it was clear that White was pressing with 2 rooks on the 7th rank. Firugia was very close to lose, but he defended well, and the endgame was not easy. There were some other interesting games, as I said. Nakamura Radjabov. This was probably, well, this was the only decisive game, probably the most interesting of this round. Let me check what was the critical moment here. Well, I mean, it was a slow game. They were repeating a line of Caruana Kramnik, also a game Nepomniachtchi, Aronian, and Nakamura came with a small novelty, Rook E1. In this moment, he went Rook E1, and well, I mean, he got some initiative. Black had to sacrifice a pawn to get some compensation to finish development. And they were very soon reaching a position where Black has compensation. Look at this. Probably the pawn is fully compensated. But Radjabov didn't find a way to get the material back. And slowly he was getting worse and worse, till one moment where he is going for some endgame where White is better. Not clearly winning, of course, but a clear pawn up. We will see after a small mistake, Rook D5. This was probably a move which was not very precise. He could move the bishop away, Bishop G4, keeping the position. Probably this was kind of equal. But after Rook D5, he allowed Rook C6, and now White is going to grab this pawn. This is what happened in the game. And finally, Nakamura was able to convert this advantage, which was not easy. But still, the American, very tough. He got back to 50%. Let's have a look at the games of round 3, because it was very promising at the beginning. Liren got some edge against Rapport in round 3. Let me find these games. I think it was, yes, Liren Rapport. He got a huge advantage, in my opinion, after the opening. He won exchange, and on move 27, I think he showed that he's not in good form. I mean, this was, well, there was one critical moment here on move 22 when he played very strong King F1. This is the position, have a look. Blackie has sacrificed an exchange for just one pawn and pair of bishops. It could be more or less acceptable, but his position is not so good because the open files play very much in White's favor. Now he made a bad mistake with 92, but it was very difficult to find the refutation. Computer jumped the evaluation to decisive for White. But of course the move Queen E2 came immediately after just 52 seconds. Probably White was considering Queen D8, which is winning according to the computer, but it's very difficult to understand why. It's because the move Queen G5. This is a very difficult move to find. The threat is H6 check and Rook D8 mate. It's also Queen takes C5 check, and Black is lost according to some analysis. Still, the move played by Liren is pretty good, Queen E2. And in my opinion, the strange thing came a bit later when White played the move Rook E1. I don't like at all this move. I mean, in this position, I would immediately play Queen E2. This looks to me a very natural move because we want to trade queens. The endgame could be easily winning, and Black needs to go to Queen F5 to keep his bishop protected. And after take, we can start now to play something like King G1, G3, King, and slowly improving White's position. And finally, one day white will capture the pawn on b6 and win with the a4. Instead, he went rook e1, and this is a very, in my opinion, poor move, because black wants to bring the bishop to d4. With the rook, we are going to help the bishop to come to d4, and in a few moves, he got into time trouble, because Rapport played very fast this game. Liren was very slow, and very soon black will manage to bring his bishop to d4. And okay, in this moment, he's not any worse. I mean, the bishop is going to get support with e5, is protecting b6, attacking on f2, position is equal, and few moves later, white decided to sacrifice, give the exchange back, and make a draw. This proves clearly that Liren is not in good shape, missing such an opportunity. In this round 3, all games ended in a draw. Some of them were very technical, like Caruana Duda. Radjavov Nepomniachtchi was a very short draw, solid. Radjavov trying to recover from his defeat on the first round. And the most interesting game by far was Firouzja Nakamura. Let's have a look to end this recap. Let's have a look at this game. It was a well-known line of the Nimzo Indian. We can see the moves here. And this was a favorite line of Nakamura. He has played this many times, and particularly with this position, which I will show you, he had no less than 5 games in this position. Even against players like Carlsen, which the game went e3. And Naka is very confident in this line, but he was a bit surprised by the move Queen c2 played by Firouzja. It was a brilliant preparation by the young Alireza Firouzja. The idea is to play e4. Of course, white is taking a lot of risk, playing with the king on the center without development, and black reacted in the most natural way with c5, trying to get the game open against this king. And now everything became very sharp. And we have to applaud Alireza for his preparation, but also, especially Nakamura, for his brilliant reaction. He found some of the best moves. White sacrificed a piece. Was very exciting battle, and he was very well prepared. Now the queen coming to f4. Just let me show you how deep was this preparation, because in this position it looks like black can play e5 and solve all his problems. But the preparation was brilliant, because the answer was d5, and white has a huge compensation after rook d3, slowly playing with 2 pawns for the knight, but he's going to get a good attack and a brilliant compensation. The bishop is very powerful. So this was a very deep trap, and Nakamura escaped very well with a good instinct, and after a few forced moves they went to a disposition. And in my opinion, okay, some commentators, they don't know too much about chess. They say, oh, here the best move was queen d7, because after bishop f6 black could play check, and take the rook. Okay, people, don't look so much at the computer. I mean, for a human, this is incredibly scary. I mean, how can you allow this check, take everything, queen f7? I mean, this is crazy. I mean, maybe it's a draw, and it's true that by mathematical play, perfect play with black, this can be a draw. But what Naka played is much more human, and in my opinion better. I mean, it's a more simple way to play queen a4 check, trade queens on e4, and play some equal endgame. They say that, okay, maybe white was better in this endgame because the bishop is slightly better than the knight. Maybe it's true, but the knight is very strong, coming to d5, and black gets everything kind of perfect with his pieces, and it's a good compensation for the bishop. I mean, in general, the endgame is equal, and Firouzja had some chances, but in general, Naka, he resisted well and made a very important draw. So this was the recap of these 3 rounds. Now we have 2 leaders, Caruana and Nepomniachtchi with +1, 4 players with 50%, and a long tournament ahead of us. Anything can happen. I invite you to go back with me after round number 6. We will have another rest day, and we will make a second recap of this very exciting chess tournament. See you then. Thank you so much. Bye bye.